Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm in practice mode right now. So let me wait. I'm going to wait for everybody else to jump back on before I go live. Hi, Kelsey.
Okay.
Hi, JT. I see you now.
Perfect.
Hi, Georges. I see all of
Hello.
you. Okay.
Ah, there we are.
Great. Blake, you're actually horizontal.
Okay.
I don't see. Yeah. Okay.
You want that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to broadcast so that all the attendees can now see us.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
You guys all ready?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And we are back. Okay, I'm just going to give a few minutes for people to start joining, and then we can get started.
Sounds good.
Hi, Kim.
Hey, Blakey. What's up?
I
I've got
feel
an answer for you. I've got an answer for you. So after this,
nice.
yeah.
I
Good.
got to head right on the ice. That's why I'm in my car. I hope it's not too distracting back here.
I did a thing last week with the St. Louis Blues, and I was in the car, and it was like 100 degrees in the car, and I'm like sweating. It was not pretty. Kelsey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Yeah, just working from home and getting sick of it.
Oh, God. Well, I'm honored to be on a panel with you folks.
And we're honored to have you. I guess we'll get started now. It seems like many people are still logging in, but we'll just get this going. First of all, thank you all for taking the time to join and agreeing to be here. Everybody, including myself, we're all really excited about the conversations that are going to take place. And hopefully this is the beginning of a conversation and it will continue. So I'll start out with just quick intros for everyone, in case anybody who's participating in the panel, doesn't know who is joining. So I will first introduce Kim Davis, who is the Executive Vice President of Social Impact, Growth and Legislative Affairs at the NHL, and also was named by Hockey News in 2020 as the top 100 most influential leaders in sport. Also JT Brown, thank you for being here. Right winger for the AHL's Iowa Wild, and also under contract for the NHL's Minnesota Wild. Kelsey Colzer, former NWHL player and new head coach for Arcadia University's Women's League. This makes Kelsey's appointment in this position as the first Black head coach in NCAA hockey history. So major congratulations for you, Kelsey.
Thank you.
Also joined by Georges Larac, coming to us from Montreal, Canadian sports commentator, politician, and former NHL player. So thanks for joining. And lastly, Blake Bolden, also NWHL player, first African-American player to play for the NWHL, and also a scout for the LA Kings. So I hope I got all that information right, and I apologize if I made any mistakes. So we will just jump right into the questions for the panel. The first question I'm going to direct to all of you, and I'll ask, how has your lived experience as a Black man, a Black woman, influenced your perspective and your trajectory in your respective careers? We can start with Blake, since you're at the top of my left corner.
Okay, awesome. I thought about this question a little bit. I think when I was a young girl and I decided that I wanted to play hockey at the highest level, I didn't realize the impact that it would have on me, just being a first Black person to do XYZ. And playing through my career, I think as women, especially Black women, doing something that is not traditional, you have to adapt. And I think adaptation is something that I've taken throughout my entire career, sometimes adapting is negative and sometimes it can be positive. But I think that for survival and 101 evolution is adapting and being strong and being resilient. I was the only Black person to go to my high school for 4 years straight. I became the first Black person to play in the NWHL, and now I'm the first Black woman to scout in the NHL. And with that comes a lot of good things, and I've learned a lot from the bad things that have happened. And I can only share my story with everyone and just be that pillar for someone to look at and say, hey, that is possible for me to do.
Thank you for sharing. I'll direct the question to Georges. You entered in the league, you're somewhat of a veteran in the game, so perhaps you can provide some of your own insight.
Yeah, well, my parents were born in Haiti. And when they moved to Montreal, and I wanted to play hockey because I was born in Montreal, like all the other kids, they didn't want me to play hockey because we live in an urban city outside of Montreal, 45 minutes away from Montreal. There was no Black kids playing hockey. And in my minor hockey, I remember, even though I was just 5, I remember like it was yesterday because my entire minor hockey was like that. I was getting called the N-word by every parent in the stands. It was so bad that my parents didn't want me to play. And but I didn't care. For my love for the game, I wanted to play and prove everyone wrong. A couple of years later, I fall into Jackie Robinson autobiography, and it was a kid version of it, and it showed and explained how he faced tons of racism to be the first Black player to play Major League Baseball. So even though at that time I loved hockey, but hockey wasn't my favorite sport, soccer was, because my dad was a professional soccer in Haiti. When I read Jackie Robinson's book, I wanted to be like him. I wanted to make it to the NHL, not just for me to prove everyone wrong, but I wanted to be a role model like Jackie Robinson was for many African Americans. So it became my mission, not just to make it to the NHL, but to one day to write my own autobiography to inspire other minorities that might want to play hockey and they don't see many of them. So making it to the NHL, that's what it has done. Making it to the NHL has shown me how perseverance and hard work, despite of any negative energy, what you could do, how nothing in life is impossible, and how with my book that I wrote in French and English that became a bestseller, I could be a role model for many other minorities that might want to play a sport that don't think it's for them. And hopefully with my words and the many public speaking appearances that I do, I inspire them to pursue, even though there's still too much racism nowadays.
Thank you for sharing. Kim, over to you.
Yeah. Even though I'm new to the world of hockey, I've been with NHL for 2.5 years. I'm not new to the world of work, and clearly not new to the world of racism. As a 60-year-old woman who grew up in the 60s, I can remember what that experience was like with not being able to go into bathrooms except those that were for Blacks only, and water fountains. Those are lived experiences for me. And so my hope is that over the course of my career, I've been a truth teller and a role model, and someone who has been at the forefront of change. And so my hope is that we are ready in the sport of hockey to move to the next level of change, and I'm excited to be part of that.
Thank you for sharing, Kim. JT?
I'll just say, as being a minority in hockey, I mean, you learn from a young age to deal with adversity that would be different from your teammates. So I think going from that point on, I think you just kind of have to learn to use that as like a fueling tool. And I think that's kind of been my, whole career, is just trying to prove people wrong. So I think, just learning from a young age that you might be going through things that are different than your teammates.
And Kelsey?
Yeah, I think I have somewhat of a unique perspective being mixed race, being raised by a single parent and being predominantly around the white side of my family. It was always, it really wasn't until late high school, early college that it really hit me kind of what I had accomplished, and then, the avenue and the doors that I was able to open up in the future, just because it wasn't something that you know, as strange as it seems, you know, you would think that, you know, being the only minority player, you know, I think I can count on one hand how many other minority players I got to face or be teammates with in youth hockey, you know, but being predominantly around white people, it really didn't dawn on me until later on. And part of me thinks that is a blessing in disguise, just because, you know, by the time I did realize the impact, I was mature enough to handle that. And that's something that, you know, I'm definitely grateful for. But, you know, I think hockey does, being, you know, a female hockey player, playing against boys first, you know, you face that adversity early on. And so then making that transition to realize, hey, not only am I a female hockey player playing a male sport, but, you know, being a minority player on top of that, you know, it really kind of helped me roll with the punches right from the start. You know, when you got older and started to see, you know, more racially charged negativity on the ice from the stands, you know, plenty of parents were involved in it. And it's something that, you know, you grow up, I think, a bit earlier, hearing that on the ice and learning to deal with that internally, and then, you know, kind of try to set a good example for others on how they should handle it as well.
Okay, great. So second question will be directed towards Georges. Georges, as the veteran on this panel, can you speak to life as a Black hockey player during your time in the league and the changes and shifts you've seen during your career as well as after your retirement?
Well, once I made it to the NHL, things were pretty good for me. There's only one little incident that happened to me with Sean Avery, but I like the fact that in the middle of my career, the NHL, they put a ruling because any racist slur would be suspended. And that was a really good step in the right direction, because you know, you've heard stuff before back in the days. I know back in the days, I'm talking Willie or time, but things have really evolved. I've never felt any racism in all my 4 teams that I played on. You know, in the hockey dressing room, you know, there's players from all different nations, and we all go to war together, and we're family. So it's been pretty good. And once the NHL stepped up with that rules, I thought that things were pretty good. There is some little incident that happened, but nothing even close to all the other sports. So I think that, you know, on that, at least, you know, hockey makes all the guys accountable to their action and to what they say. And because of those rules, I think that guys from different nationalities feel pretty respected, especially nowadays that things evolve and gets better and better.
Thank you for sharing. And to clarify, for those who may not know, could you provide us with like the length of your career from when you entered and to when you left?
Yeah. I play 13 years in the NHL. I started with the Edmonton Oilers that drafted me in '95, and then I played for the Coyotes, Pittsburgh Penguins, and I retired with the Montreal Canadiens, which was my hometown.
Which is, I'm sure, something you were very proud of and excited to experience.
Yeah, well, when you're born in Montreal, actually, you'd be surprised. You don't really want to play for Montreal because you know, when you speak French and you play for a French team like this, there's way more media stuff you have to do, and there's way more pressure because since there's not many French guys, the media, you got to wait an extra hour after every day to talk to them because they need to make the news, right? So all my career, I said I was never going to play for Montreal, but for my mom, towards the end, I promised that I would finish there, so I did it for her.
That's amazing. So I'll move on to the next question, and I'll direct it towards the women on this panel, Blake, Kelsey, and Kim. As women, and Black women at that, who are actively contributing to the advancement of hockey, what kind of intersectional conversations do you believe are missing from the current narrative?
Yeah, let me start, because I have a very keen example of why it is important to think about intersectionality, particularly as it relates to women of color. When we were putting together a year ago the female advisory board of the NHL, and these were people from my team that were putting it together. When they presented me with the first draft of the folks that they wanted to have on the advisory board, first thing I noticed was that there weren't any women of color. And when I questioned that, very benign, people said, well, we were really just thinking about, you know, women and hadn't really thought about the intersections that women bring. And I said, this is why it's important to have representation, because had I not been in the role that I'm in, we probably would have proceeded with an advisory board that represented the interest of women, but didn't take into account the intersection of race, ethnicity, and sexual orientation, which is so important because that lived experience is very different. And the data proves that lived experience is different when you look at things like representation on boards, where we talk about women only representing about 19.8% of board seats, but when we look at women of color, that number drops to 3%. So there's something about that lethal intersection of race, ethnicity, and gender that does make a difference, and it's important to have that representation count.
Thank you for sharing that, Kim. Kelsey, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, you know, I think it's right. I mean, as female hockey players, we, most of the time, you know, you start out, the first obstacle that you see is not even surrounding race necessarily. It's, you know, again, like I had mentioned before, you're a girl playing a boys sport. So I think especially, you know, I've really thought a lot in the last couple of weeks about this conversation as it pertains to women's hockey. And, you know, I've thought about my experiences on the ice, and, you know, I can thankfully say I've never experienced a racial slur playing women's hockey. You know, anything I experienced, it was when I was playing against the boys. And so, you know, I think that I was trying to think about why that might be. And I think it is because you start out with kind of a level of mutual respect for your fellow women, because you know what it took to get as far as we have, just strictly being women in the game. So then, of course, adding race on top of that, you know, it adds a whole new level of challenges. You know, you think even back to the grassroots level of, you know, why might girls and girls of color be, you know, nervous to start or, you know, drop out. And, you know, a lot of that could be, you know, cultural differences in the locker room that, you know, you might not think of, but it's all things that, you know, again, like Kim had said, if you don't have that representation and that lived experience, you know, when, you know, you have your teammates asking you why you don't wash your hair every day, or just things like that, it's, you know, and, you know, I don't know if guys face that, but, you know, as women of color in the game, it's something that, you know, you face on a day-to-day, and it's just added obstacles that, you know, we face, and why the women minority representation in the game is a little too far behind, in my opinion.
And Blake?
Absolutely. I think Kelsey and I share a lot of the same experiences. I was chuckling when she was talking about the hair situation. We are just so separated, I think, as women in the sport of ice hockey. And then on top of that, being a Black female. I think being an athlete in the sport, playing ice hockey, I think, you know, we just put our heads down and we do our jobs, and we're very humble for the most part. And I think it's important to take the things that are in the dark and bring them into the light and have those conversations about differences. You know, sometimes even in the sport in general, just coloring outside of the lines is something that we don't tend to love seeing that much. And sharing our stories is what makes us special. And I think it's important, just like this conversation and the many conversations that we've been having in the last couple of weeks, just having that awareness so you have that knowledge, so we can all evolve and collaborate and create that allyship to understand, okay, these are the things that we need to change moving forward. These are the conversations that need to be had. And just coming together instead of feeling separated is very important for me.
Yeah, and like just going back to the comment about, you know, your teammates asking you why you don't wash your hair every day. As you know, as Black people, we understand that hair is political. And so there's way more, it's a very loaded question. And so we understand the complexities of that. And something like that would also have to be addressed in these conversations. So I'm just going to move on to question number 4 and direct it to JT and Kim. How do you envision the discussions around Black Lives Matter and anti-racism carrying over to the league as the NHL's anticipated return is imminent? And how do you see, you know, the same energy, as they say nowadays, being kept?
I can start.
Yeah.
I just think as far as a player's perspective, it's up to, you know, us as a collective to make sure that this is a high priority for each one of us. I know we do spend a lot of time, you know, perfecting our craft, working out, skating, but we do have a lot of downtime. So there is time for us to continue to educate ourselves and to continue, you know, to speak out on these issues. And it shouldn't take a, you know, a movement like Black Lives Matter or to watch, you know, somebody die on video to have these conversations. I think there's instances in our game where we've missed the mark and haven't come together as a, you know, an entire NHL community. Just for instance, the Keandre Miller, you know, having, if we could have had the same energy, so to speak, during situations like that, to prove and to show everybody that as a league, we do combat racism and we won't accept it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'm excited that we have the voices of our Black and brown players, and the fact is that it's painful and sad that, as JT said, it took the moment of this particular murder to wake us up, but we, I think, are awakened, and I hope we don't go back to sleep anytime soon. I know that I have the attention for sure of the league as we are thinking about, for example, resumption of play, and how the voices of Black Lives Matter will be represented as we are in the stadiums that will not have fans. But we have to use every moment and every opportunity to showcase and to illustrate and to illuminate the fact that this is not a moment, but this is a movement, and we are in for the long haul.
Well said, Kim. Thank you for sharing that. And last question, which I will direct towards everyone. Conversations have circled around structural and institutional change as current and past players. What kind of multi-level efforts would you like to see in hockey, and as well as the world, to make this term actionable and impactful? We can start with JT.
So I would just say, I think we all can agree that, you know, systemic and institutional racism exist. And I think it's easier said than done to say that we're going to correct this. I look at this panel and I see a lot of experts in hockey. And I think that's where we can use our expertise the most, and to make the most impactful change is in our game of hockey. Obviously, we'd love to make a global impact, but I think with our platforms and with, you know, the level that we've all been able to get to, I think focusing on hockey and being able to make those changes there is going to be our biggest impact.
Thank you for that. And Georges?
For me, in terms of hockey right now, the NHL, with all the ruling, I think everything is pretty good. Where I would love to see changes is with the minors, with the kids. Because more minority kids that we see playing hockey, the more minority girls we see playing hockey, the more you're going to see playing pros. And for that to change, the mentality of the parents, they're afraid to put those kids into those sports, have to change. And for that to change, we have to make hockey accessible to other minorities. The NHL with Willie for many years has run a program called the Diversity Task Force that right now, Kim Davis is making it much bigger. I think that if the NHL right now using this moment to create a movement and hiring more people to bring hockey to minorities, so they get interested in playing that sport, to show that hockey is for everyone. So we stop talking about the fact that hockey is a white man's sport, like girls can't play hockey. Because if we bring it to them, we show them how beautiful the sport is to those kids, and we show this to the parents. And all of you guys in this panel, if you guys are coming and you're talking to them, you do speech to them, to the parents, to the kids, you will inspire other kids that are going to want to play hockey and not going to be afraid because there's not many minorities. And then the more minorities we're going to see playing, the more we're going to see playing pro. So it's a process that starts with the kids, because as adults, you know, we could talk about it, but someone with a bad mentality, you're not going to change an adult right now that is not for equality. But every kid's born not being racist. Every kid's are born to play and just to have fun. So that's why I think that if we work with the kids and the parents, I think that we could grow the game even more and the popularity of it by just making it more accessible to them.
Thanks for that. Does anybody want to jump in, or I can direct the question to any one of you?
I can jump in. Kind of stemming off of that, I wanted to, kind of focus on the grassroots level. I think it's important, and I think one way we can really help that, on top of making hockey more accessible, is really educating coaches. I think that they can have a huge impact on the conversations that are had in the locker room and kind of the direction that the culture of the team is heading. I think, being someone who has to go through trainings nonstop, I think that there is a huge lack of training when it comes to racist language and, those microaggressions that are hard to pick up on sometimes. But as a coach, it's important you spend the most time with them. You're in the locker room, you see the inner workings of the team. So having more trainings for coaches at all levels, especially the youth level, though, I think is something that could be introduced, and something that's really important to, really kind of stem, and start that change. Because I think I think there's a huge gap in training right now. You see plenty of training on, sexual harassment and, all different kinds of things, but I think that there can be a lot more emphasis put on, those microaggressions and language and culture and how to have those difficult conversations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think that the NHL has to double down on the efforts that we've had of recent days to use our position as the North Star of the sport to really make a change in the youth ecosystem. We must do more training, and we must do more town halls on racism. If you really think about it, we don't even hear the word anti-racism being used as much as it should be, given the number of incidents that we see within youth hockey. And so we have to have a zero tolerance. We can't just have a rule. We have to be able to enforce it, and there have to be penalties once we train people if they don't adhere. Because as everyone has said, the way we're going to grow our sport is to make the funnel larger. If we get more in, we're definitely going to get more out on the other end, particularly on the professional end and on the fandom end. So this is something that I think has got to be a clarion call across the hockey community, that we all must recommit ourselves to changing the way youth hockey is today, so that tomorrow's youth really have a chance to be in our sport.
And Blake?
Absolutely. Speaking on making the funnel larger, I think NHL franchises and their AHL franchises together can be a little bit more like my fellow Kings, hiring me as someone who is not particularly someone that would be in a position to be a scout. I had the credentials and the background, and instead of hiring someone that they would already probably have in that position, they went a different route. They got a different perspective. So I think hiring Black and brown people in the offices, as we've spoken many times before, representation matters. And now that I am in this position, also the story is being told, and people are understanding that this is very powerful, and this can be trickled down from the top all the way to the bottom, and from the grassroots all the way to the top. So if we come at it at all different areas, we can tackle this situation together. And so I'm very proud to be a part of an organization that is forward thinking and uses their power to influence and help someone like myself and change the mindsets of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So we've wrapped up our panel, and I'd love to transition into a Q&A period. We're receiving questions, and I've also received some questions via email. I'll try my best to get to all of the questions, but I'll jump right into the Q&A if that's all right with everyone. Does anybody else have anything else to add before we move on to that portion? Okay, great. So first question, what does change look like with the NHL and other elite level leagues? How will the NHL go about a culture change that does not require Black, Indigenous, people of color, and LGBTQS plus peoples too, as Georges and others have had to do, and that is persevere through these unsafe conditions? So sorry about it's a long question, but I guess the root of it is that, you know, what does change look like in the NHL for communities like Black, Indigenous people of color and LGBTQS2S plus people?
I could start this to answer this. The NHL has done a good job reaching out players, for example, to reaching players to join the Pride Parade. I think it's so important. Back in the days, you never saw NHL players in parades, and now more and more guys are joining. So, because to me, inequality, racism, or inequality towards the LGBTQ community is the same thing. You know, and we got to fight for both, because, you know, we often say that in professional sport, you know, maybe some team has someone that is homosexual, but in a sport team, they won't come out because the mentality of playing a physical sport, players are afraid to come out. They wait till they retire before they do so. And I think that now, with what's going on this year, the conversation is coming not just from the Black community and not just from the LGBTQ community. It's coming from everywhere. Everyone now is asking for change. Everyone now is asking for equality, and everyone now wants to see action. So now, what's going to be awesome to see is how every group, every sport group are going to act, what action they're going to do to show the world that they're in for change, because it's easy to talk, but the hardest thing to do is put it into action. And I know the NFL has put $250 million in the next 10 years to fight for equality. The NHL now with Kim Davis are growing a program to show that they're fighting for equality. So every sport are doing tangible action, and I'm pretty sure that in the future, things will be much better. And my dream is obviously for racism to be completely gone, but for also every homosexual player to come out of the closet, even if they're playing right now, because look at all those kids that are playing right now in minor hockey. If a professional athlete can't come out while they're playing pro and they're men's or women's, imagine a kid that has to play in a team sport, doesn't have the courage as an adult has, and he might not play the sport he loves just because you think that, you know, teams in sport, it's not for him because he's going to get teased, he's going to get harassed, and maybe the coach doesn't understand. There's such a big job about explaining to parents and to coaching to everyone that we're all equal, but, you know, it goes in every level. And I think that it starts with us, the pros, because everything the pro do in minor levels, you know, they follow through.
And Kim, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it really is much of what Blake said earlier about it has to be both top down and bottoms up. And I've often said that we have to have all of our cylinders roaring at the same time. This work is not sequential. It has to all be happening at the same time, and that makes it complex. But that's what real change is going to look like. One of the things that I know we as a league are hoping to do a better job of is being better listeners and learners. I think that we, for a long time, have kept the power and the decision making of how we do things in a pretty tight bubble, and not invited other voices in to bring their perspectives to how we think we can grow the game and grow our business. And we are about to announce and launch a series of councils and committees focused on things like youth hockey and experiences of players and ways to market to multicultural groups, and really bringing and bubbling up those ideas and those recommendations that come out of those committees to an executive council that will be made up of owners and presidents and general managers who have the power and the influence and should be held accountable for ensuring that we affect change across all of these dimensions. I think one important thing we have to be transparent about is what our demographics look like at every level, from the front office all the way down. You know, you don't know where you need to go if you don't understand where you are. And so not being afraid to put a stake in the ground and to say, this is what our demographics look like, and here are the ways in which we're going to grow, and for us to put some measurable metrics in place to get there over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. And be honest that it takes that amount of time. If we think that we're going to solve this problem overnight, we're fooling ourselves. This is not something that happened overnight. It's going to take time, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep our shoulder to the plow and ensure that we are held accountable for making substantive change over time. And I can't think of anyone that I've talked to, starting with the commissioner, who's not committed to this. And so this is the work.
Okay. And would an example of that include bringing on more people of color at the executive level within the NHL?
It absolutely has to.
Okay. And next question, unless anybody else has anything to add, I'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, I would just point out, I'd say continuing to be, a vocal leader in the hockey world. I think you might underestimate how much, from a player perspective, how much little kids look up to the superstars in our league. And if they continue to say that, I think that will really help change, the younger mindset. But then if you also look at, from the league's perspective, you look at the junior teams and you look at the youth hockey and how much those associations build off of what the NHL is doing. So I think from both the player and the NHL perspective, continuing to be, vocal on these race issues and continuing to push the envelope, that's what's really going to push the change, especially going down to the youth level.
Thanks for highlighting that, JT. Next question comes to us all the way from Kenya, and they ask, now that hockey is played around the world, including several African countries, how can we use this diversity to show traditional hockey audiences that it is indeed a game for everyone? Maybe Blake, would you like to chime in on that as a scout?
Yeah, sure. I think visibility is very important. I would love to travel to Africa and hang out with people that are on the ice. That would be incredible, but we need to be able to see it. So if there is a way for us to capture these moments and these experiences that everyone's having all over the world and put them together and share them with one another, I think that could go a long way. And with social media at this day and age, it's a very powerful tool that we can use to stay informed and share more stories.
And
Yeah.
Kelsey or Kim, please feel free to jump in.
Just to illuminate Blake's point about, seeing people and understanding that our sport is universally loved and played. I think when the Kenyan team was seen in the Canadian commercial, that was a game changer in terms of people understanding that, one, it was ice hockey was being played in Kenya, and two, that there was this incredible love. I have to say, over the past couple of weeks, I've gotten outreach via LinkedIn from a team in the UK, our partners in Germany, who are all focused on hockey is for everyone and growing the sport with underrepresented groups in those countries. So I think it's happening. I think Blake is right. Social media is making us aware of it. And that can't do anything but help us with the aspiration that kids need to see other kids of color all around the world playing a sport that they previously thought was not for them.
And would anybody else like to add to that? Okay, I will move on. I'll direct this question to everyone, and well, specifically players and past players. Do you recall specific advice that your parents gave you around dealing with racism, and have you been able to apply those lessons learned? Georges, would you like to
Yeah,
add to
sure,
that?
no problem. Yeah, yeah. You know, as I said, growing in a town where we're the only Black family, and I remember when my dad came from Haiti and he studied to be an engineer, it was because of a job, a really good job, that we had to move into this town. And as a young age, he thought out to stand up to ourselves. And unfortunately, you know, my dad being old school, the way that he was telling us to stand up, it was with our fist, not the best way to do so, which is ironic that I end up being a tough guy in the NHL. But yeah, it was not good where we lived in. We had to fight a lot for our own self, to defend ourselves, to defend where we were from. So I was so glad when we moved to Montreal, where there was more minorities there, so it wasn't that bad. But because of that, I learned how to stand up for myself a lot, you know, in areas where I couldn't fight back. Because when you're talking about playing in hockey rinks where you're getting called the N-word from parents in the stands, what am I going to do? I'm 7 years old, and they're chanting songs with the N-word on it the entire game. And, you know, that's what I had to live with. So what I did, other than doing my dad advice, because it would have been to jump in the stands after everyone, is I just, like Jackie Robinson did, I just use it as a motivation. I worked and I played harder to prove them wrong, and the only way to do so was to make it into the NHL. So that's why it's tough. It's a really good question, but again, most people that are in this panel, they all have a strong mind and adversity, because you know, playing hockey and you know, you're playing to play professional, you gotta beat like millions of other kids that wants to do the same job as you. But the obstacle of racism is an obstacle that no kid should ever have. And everyone in this panel, to be a pros like you guys all been, you all had to go through those obstacles. So it makes you all superhuman. The fact that you've done stuff that other kids that made it pros never had to do those hurdles. So that's why we all have a story to tell, and we all inspire some other young kids that might have to unfortunately go through the same thing as we have. But because we have go through it, we could help them go through some of the same struggle that we have.
And would anybody else like to add to that?
I can add to that. You know, I think, you know, early on, you know, I kind of always, it was typically other people that would point out, oh, they you know, they use the N-word towards you, different things like that. I don't know if I was just too caught up in the game. I rarely ever heard it. But I think the important message for me from parents, from coaches, you know, was just to kind of let your play speak for itself first and foremost. You know I can remember then in high school, you know, I experienced a racial slur and immediately skated after the person and just started punching. And obviously I was the only one that got a penalty. So there I am sitting in the box for 4 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever I wound up getting. And, you know, it's at the end of the day that I'm just sitting there. And really the message was like, what good did that do? So it always was, you know, a message of let your play speak for itself, but well, you know, finding a way to stand up for yourself and make it known that that's not okay. So, you know, alerting refs, alerting opposing coaches, you know, especially in the youth game, my parents would always fight to make sure that I received an apology from that player and that they truly understood why what they did was wrong. And so, you know, I remember a couple of kind of awkward moments after games where some little boy is walking up to me and you know, saying sorry, but not quite understanding what he's apologizing for. But I think it was important to kind of get that started early, you know, for teammates and opponents and things like that. But, you know, trying to stay calm in the moment is not always easy.
Right. JT, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was sort of a lot of the similar situations. I mean, I was taught, especially in youth hockey, you know, when they're saying these things to you, they're just trying to get you off their game. And, you know, kind of like, you know, you want to fight them, you want to throw punches. And, you know, from my parents' perspective, you know, a lot of times they just kind of told me, you want to get back at them? Like you said, let your play do the talking for you. Go score a goal or go win the game. And, you know, that's sort of the thing that was going to make them more upset than you taking the only penalty by trying to retaliate with them.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of connected experiences, especially also in the Willie documentary where, you know, even Willie O'Ree spoke about taking that attitude. So it seems like, you know, that's one connecting thing amongst all of you. I'm going to kind of shift the question and take it off the ice and speak more to the corporate experience. And this question is, what advice would you offer to people of color? This particular person is a black woman, and she's a black woman, I should say, and who are working on the front office side of hockey, often being the only people of color on the front office operations of a team, of a hockey club, and you know, having to deal with being the only person of who's black, or potentially the only woman, or both. Kim, do you have any advice with regard to that?
You know, and when I think about my own career, every role that I've had, clearly every leadership and managerial role that I've had over the past 35 years in corporate life, I've been the only one. I've gotten used to that, and I have built my own, you know, board of directors, those influencers and mentors and people that I can call on outside of where I worked, who encouraged me and kept me motivated, and that I could, you know, quote, let my hair down with, so that when I could turn frustration into something that was more impactful. I think all the time about the stories that my grandmother told me. My grandmother was the first African-American woman to get her PhD from Harvard in 1929. And she was one of two women in her class, and the other woman, who was a white woman, wouldn't even study with her. And yet she graduated second in her PhD program. And she always said that you don't get mad, you get even. And that's been the universal message that we've heard from this panel, whether it's on the ice or whether it is off the ice. We have to understand that as we are shifting these environments where we're the only ones, we are role models and people are looking to us as leaders, and that we have to find other places to get enriched. But in the meantime, we can't get discouraged because of that. We should wear that as a badge of honor and see ourselves as change agents that are going to make the future brighter for the next generation. So I tell that person to stay encouraged, find their networks outside of work, and continue to work hard and use their voices to improve the demographics in the office, so that 5 years from now, she or he is not the only one.
Thanks, Kim. And Kelsey and Blake, you both have, you know, accomplished being the first, you know, Blake, for you as the first Black scout, and Kelsey being, you know, the first Black head coach in NCAA hockey history. What kind of advice would you offer? What kind of advice have you given yourself in your own journey?
I'll go, Kels. I think Kim really made all of those points perfectly. I think for me, growing up and learning how to navigate in the workspace, being strategic and how I insert myself, because sometimes you can be perceived a little bit different based off of your energy. And I think absolutely right, having your network to be able to lean on, or someone that you can talk to, definitely not muting yourself, because that internalizes and becomes negative, but finding ways to change and make your environment positive, because no one wants to work in a place that doesn't support them. So hopefully you can find that support within your workspace, and you are a respected person and you are wanted there, or you wouldn't be there. So have courage and confidence within yourself to do great work.
Thanks, Blake. Kelsey?
Yeah, I would agree with, you know, what Blake said in terms of making sure that you know your worth and where you are. And yeah, it's at times you're going to have to pick and choose when and how you speak up, but making sure that you do, and you find your avenue and you find your voice as well. you know, I'm fortunate to work with other athletically minded people. So that's something that I really, you know, I try to find that common ground, you know, that way, and connect with my coworkers that way and bounce ideas off of them that way. While also, you know, trying to provide my own expertise in a certain area and help them with different things that they might need help with. So I think it is all a matter of, you know, balance and give and take, and, you know, kind of really finding that support system and finding that network, whether it be, you know, in your actual department or, you know, completely outside of, you know, your work's sphere. But, you know, finding those people that you can turn to and vent to, and, you know, making sure that there's always an avenue for you to let off some steam, because it's going to come with the territory no matter what job you're in.
Okay, great. I will jump to the next question. I'll probably do this plus one more to everybody who is joining this panel. I apologize if I've missed your questions, but hopefully this will be the first of many other panels. So we'll try to get to everything. In the interest of intersectionality, someone has asked about ableism and how that is also something that needs to be included in the conversation. So how can the male-dominated communities within major hockey organizations address this issue and ensure that we are not once again left behind in this societal upheaval and change? So with regard to, just to clarify, the topic of ableism and ensuring that this progress is not just for able-bodied people, and that we do include people who are disabled, and also potentially Black and Indigenous people of color. Does anybody want to?
Yeah, I'll start, because you know, on this journey of listening and learning, I have to say over the past year, I have been grateful to people like Jen O'Brien, who runs ASHA, in her advocacy and her, you know, creating teachable moments for me to understand some of the challenges and opportunities within the special hockey world. And we are including those voices as part of our inclusion work, for sure, on all of our committees, and ensuring that we don't forget those voices and those unique experiences that really help both to grow our sport and to grow our fan base. So it's an important intersection. It's one that's often not thought about, top of mind. And it's something that I think we all have to continue to be mindful of as we work through this work. So yeah, it's a critical learning for all of us, I think. For me, for sure.
Does anybody have anything else to add on that question? Or, okay. So one thing that has been coming up over the last few weeks, particularly, is conversations around allyship. So someone asks, what can non-Black people of color do to help? This person in particular is a female person of color who has never played hockey, but basically, I'm getting lost in the question, I apologize. She's never played hockey, but they want to make an impact. So how can they help? Because oftentimes people want to help, but they don't know how. Georges?
Well, yeah. Well, you know, to be an ally, again, it's pretty much the way that you are with people around you, to sensibilize people that you see that have some prejudice, encourage your surrounding, your family, your friends to be for equality, like to believe in equality, because you know, if we're a person of impact with people that are around you, and then this chain grows and grows and grows, that's all you could do. Because yeah, a lot of people right now are talking about what's going on, which is great, but you know, and because now people are seeing things that they couldn't see before, because now everything's on social media. You know, prejudice is nothing new today. It's just that now it's on camera. So people from all different nationalities are seeing things that they never saw before, that maybe didn't think that it was this bad. Now they're seeing it, they're witnessing it. They're like, because everything's on social media. Every time there's something bad happening, people could see it. So if you want to be an ally, all you could do is be respectful and fight for equality for everyone, and start with the people that are around you. And if you start with that, if everyone, sensibilize people that are around them, because I'm pretty sure in every family there's always that person or the couple person that have some prejudice towards, maybe not Black people, but maybe it's towards homosexuals. So vice versa. And it's all about what you could do, like the love that you spread around you and stuff. And, if everyone does that, that's what you could control. All you could do is control what you're surrounding, your friends, what you can. And if most people do that, I think it's a step in the right direction.
JT, as a current player, and potentially returning to play in the next few weeks, do you have anything that you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think another key point is just listening and being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. I know it's sometimes hard when it's not something that you've lived in a day-to-day and walks of life. So I think being able to listen to somebody and somebody you respect, I think it's going to go a long way. And just to be able to have that mindset of, yes, this isn't something that I have to deal with, but I can understand that it's something that you're dealing with.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to add to that? Okay, so I will ask the last question. And it's actually, I'm going to merge it because it seems like it keeps reoccurring, and it's on the topic of accessibility and financial accessibility, and any efforts and work that's being done to make it more accessible from a financial standpoint. We speak a lot about grassroots level, so we can start there. How can we make hockey accessible financially to communities and groups of people who, may be deterred just by the financial responsibility that comes with putting their kids into the game? Or perhaps if you know of any programs that exist, you're welcome to share that as well.
Yeah, I'll kick it off just because I can speak from an NHL perspective, and the learning that I've had in the 2.5 years I've been here, primarily from talking to players like these guys and understanding that most players actually started their hockey love ball and street and deck hockey, and not on the ice. And somehow or another, over the past 10 or 15 years, we have lost the thrill and excitement of that as an on-ramp to ice hockey. And so we are really trying to reinvigorate that, starting with getting the governing bodies to represent and to acknowledge ball and street hockey as an important form of hockey, and then going into neighborhoods and coming up with innovations like taking basketball hoops and being able to create netting that fits on those basketball hoops so kids can do pickup hockey games like they do pickup basketball games. And we're testing those models right now in Boston and in Philadelphia and in Alberta in Canada. So I think that we have got to use those kind of on-ramps to inspire kids first to love hockey, and then we can find ways to move them from that love and passion to the ice.
I'd say every team that I've played for has had a program, whether it's, giving, the equipment, the ice time, teaching, learning how to skate. So, I mean, I think that's huge that every team is pretty much that I know of or that I've played on has been doing those things. I think that, we can use that and use that one or two cities or the one or two programs around the NHL city. We could use that to spread across the state and make a bigger impact. But as far as I know, every team that I've been on has had some sort of program, and, you try to be involved as much as you can.
Yeah, and you're so right in what you're saying, JT, because I've seen it too many times in my 13 years. Even guys were coming to those programs and teaching kids how to skate because CCM or company were giving free gears and we're teaching them. So teams were doing it, and the NHL has done it too. I've been in Harlem in New York with the NHL giving gears to kids and showing them how to skate, and I was really worried who were doing it. So the NHL did a pretty good job with that, because we know that the problem with hockey is expensive. And, when all the other sport, you just need a pair of shoes, hockey needs more equipment. So that's why I like, Kim, what you said about the ball hockey, because, it's so, all you need is hockey stick, and all the kids have shoes. So introduce them to hockey with ball hockey is easy. And just to give you an idea of the impact that it could have, I myself coached the Haitian ball hockey team to introduce them to NHL hockey. And we won the world championship in Switzerland in ball hockey. It was an insane experience, but you know, I wanted to do that to introduce them to hockey, and it worked. It was an amazing story. And now all the kids in Montreal are playing hockey because they hope one day to play for the national team of Haiti, ball hockey. And it just to shows you how much something as simple as giving hockey sticks to kids, and they learn about hockey and they're just running around and they fall in love with it. Then it excites them more to, in the winter, Mom, Dad, give me some skates. I want to play hockey.
Would anybody else like to add? Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, I think, you know, I do think that there are some excellent programs to get people started in hockey. You know, kind of the issue that in thinking back on my playing days and things like that is, you know, once you kind of get out of that in-house level or that starter level, you know, team fees are thousands and thousands of dollars just to play and practice. And then on top of that, you know, you're going to, you know, at elite travel hockey, you're going to, let's say, 10 to 12 tournaments every year. You know, you're driving, you're flying, you're staying in a hotel probably 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 weekends out of every month. And so it's something that I think if we can even, you know, just start kind of at those, you know, those tournament fees and the, you know, the program fees, you know, kind of really at least even getting a breakdown of what everything's going to. Obviously, I know ice is expensive, but I think there is a lot of upcharge involved there, just strictly for, you know, monetary gain for that specific, you know, program or company. And obviously it takes, you know, hockey, again, like George said, it takes a lot to play hockey. You can't just pick up a ball and put on a pair of sneakers and, you know, go to your local park. It's something that, you know, there's a lot of people involved for maintenance and different things like that. But I think there are some ways that we can at least work the sport as a whole to, you know, lower the cost even once you get beyond that in-house level. Because, you know, you're not necessarily buying a full brand new set of equipment every year, but, you know, it's even just those monthly bills that come in for playing the sport is something that can be very deterring to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that the misunderstanding or just not knowing what direction to go is really hard. When I started, I had a dad that loved the sport, and I went to play it against sports and bought this cruddy gear, and he knew that that was something that I could do. So just dropping breadcrumbs to say, okay, this is what you're interested in. You went into a ball and hockey organization at an NHL franchise and you want to go here. Let's hold your hand through this process and help you to understand what needs to be done or how we can financially support you. I think the direction would be very helpful for those parents who feel like they're a deer in the headlights and have nowhere to turn and don't know what to do.
Yeah.
That's a really great point as well, because I think a lot of parents, they think, you know, oh, I'm going to have to send my kids somewhere, like whether it's prep school or to a junior team or whatever that might be. I do think just educating parents even on what avenues, how many different avenues you can take. You know, I stayed in the Philadelphia area, went to my local public high school and played travel hockey. And luckily for me, didn't have to pay a dime for college. So that's something that, you know, I kind of, in my mind, I think, well, this is the value that hockey provided me, even though we paid probably close to that in fees and tournaments and things throughout the years. But, you know, at the end of the day, I couldn't ask for anything better than, you know, Princeton University education. So, you know, that for me, it's something that I think just that slight education of, you know, the different avenues and the different options, it can go a really long way.
Okay, well, does anybody else have anything to add to that? Otherwise, I will conclude this wonderful panel. But before doing so, I just want to give some shout outs with regard to the last question. Hockey Heroes, they have 28 youth mentoring hockey programs across Canada. And they're also part of the Hockey for Everyone community. I just want to amplify that for the people who are not looking into the chat. And then also there is a free hockey program in Detroit at Clark Park. So anybody in the Detroit area, you can take a look and connect with them over there. So thank you everyone for joining this panel and spending some time in your afternoon. I think that, you know, you all have offered so much insight and have made a great contribution. And I'm hoping that this conversation can be taken forward into Instagram, social media, and hopefully we'll be able to connect again. And I realize I did not introduce myself at the beginning of this panel, but my name is Ibien, for all of the people who have joined, and I was an associate producer on the Willie documentary. So we're all putting in the work for future progress and current progress. So thank you all again, and this panel will also be available online after for those who have missed certain parts of it. Thank you again, guys. We can all sign off now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.